Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to use ChatGPT and Google Gemini to recreate the classic no-internet dinosaur game. Let's get started with ChatGPT. First, we're just going to tell it to make the dinosaur game without giving it any other instructions to see how well it can replicate it. Alright, GPT is done thinking, and now we'll use Visual Studio to run the code. No way! Is that box supposed to represent a dinosaur? The game also looks like it's been minimized. We'll have to fix that later. For now, let's test out the game. Let's try and make it a little farther to see if the game added those annoying little pterodactyls. There come the pterodactyls. I'm surprised ChatGPT added them without me having to tell it to. Alright, let's go back and make some changes. We'll tell it to make the game full screen. It's done thinking. Let's run the new code. Alright, the game now takes up the whole page. Let's test it out to make... Oh, let's pretend that didn't happen. As I was saying, let's test the game to make sure there are no new bugs. The game looks good. We can go back and make some upgrades. It looks like ChatGPT recommends some upgrades we can implement to make the game better. Alright, let's tell ChatGPT to make all the changes. It's done thinking. Let's run the new code. Our dinosaur now looks like a turkey. Anyways, let's test out the game. It looks like ChatGPT did a really good job at implementing the sound effects. It also updated the dinosaur, very nicely. Its legs are now animated, and it even has a shadow. The day and night cycles are also shifting nicely. The difficulty is definitely ramping up too fast, but we told GPT to do this so we can test the game more easily. The high score and scoring system also seem to be tracking as intended. Overall, I think ChatGPT did a really good job at recreating the game. Now let's shift over to Gemini and see how it stacks up. Again, we'll just tell it to make the dinosaur game without giving it any other instructions to see how well it can make a clone. Gemini is done thinking. Let's run the code in Visual Studio. Hey mister, I think you're facing the wrong way. Anyways, let's test it out. It looks like Gemini made the same mistake as ChatGPT and made the game a small portion of the screen. Let's try and make it far so we can see if Gemini was able to add pterodactyls like ChatGPT did. Nope, looks like no pterodactyls were harmed in the making of this game. Let's go back and make some changes to improve the game. First, let's make sure our dinosaur is facing the right way. We'll also make it so that the game takes up the whole screen. Alright, Gemini is done making the changes. Let's run the code. It looks like it made the game take up the entire screen, but left the dinosaur and obstacles the same size. At least our dinosaur is facing the right side now. Let's test the game out a bit to make sure no new bugs have welcomed themselves. Everything looks good. Let's go back and make the same improvements that we made to the ChatGPT version. First, we'll add sound effects and make the difficulty ramp up faster so it's easier for us to test the game. Then we'll tell it to add the day and night cycles. Alright, Gemini is done making the changes. Let's run the code. Let's test the game now to make sure it implemented the changes correctly. The sound effects are working nicely just as intended. Now, let's try and get a bit further to see how the difficulty ramps up. Looks like we forgot to tell it to add the pterodactyls. Let's go back and change that. We'll tell it to increase the difficulty by adding the birds into the game. Gemini is done thinking. Let's run the code in Visual Studio. Alright, I think we'll have to make it pretty far to see the pterodactyls. Hopefully I'm good enough for the job. Watch out, it's a pterodactyl. Looks like the game did a good job at adding in the pterodactyls. Let's go a bit further to see the night and day cycles change. This crouching animation is hilarious. I turn into an itty-bitty dinosaur. Yay, looks like we finally made it to the nighttime. I think we will stop there. When we compare the two games, I definitely think ChatGPT took the win on this one. The obstacles and dinosaur it made was a lot closer to the actual Dinosaur Game. The attention to detail it put in by adding a running animation and a shadow for the dinosaur was just a step above what Google Gemini was able to deliver. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more.